You know your worth, you are valuable no matter who sees it. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today not as someone who has always known her worth, but as someone who, through time, learned to recognize it. We all have our stories, our struggles, our doubts, and our moments of questioning. But today, I want to remind you of something incredibly important. You are valuable, no matter who sees it. We often look outside ourselves for validation. We wait for others to recognize our efforts, our potential, our worth. We wait for the world to say, yes, you matter. But here's the truth. Validation from the world is not what defines your value. Your worth is inherent. It is within you, not dependent on anyone's approval. Too many times, we make the mistake of measuring our value by the expectations of others. We believe that the opinions of people who don't see our strength, our passion, or our dreams define who we are. And that can be crushing. It can make us doubt ourselves, question our abilities, and even give up on things we deeply care about. But what if we stopped giving that power away? What if we decided that no matter who recognizes our worth, we would stand tall, knowing it ourselves? What if we believed deep down that we are worthy of love, success, and respect, regardless of who sees it? I want to share something with you. Your worth is not tied to the praise you receive, nor to the approval you seek. It is in the way you carry yourself, the kindness you show, the strength you find in your vulnerability. It is in every step you take towards the person you are becoming, even when no one is watching. We are told that beauty, success, or greatness should be seen and celebrated. But what happens when no one notices? Does that mean you are not worthy of your dreams, your achievements, or your potential? Absolutely not. Your value is not for others to dictate. It is for you to embrace and nurture. So I ask you today to take a moment to recognize the incredible person you are. Don't wait for anyone to tell you how valuable you are. Tell yourself. In the quiet of your own mind, reflect on your accomplishments, on how far you've come, on the resilience that has carried you through every storm. Understand that your journey, your story, your very being has worth, no matter who sees it. The world may not always recognize your worth right away, but you must never lose sight of it. In fact, it's often in the most unseen moments that we build the most incredible strength. Those are the moments that define us. So I ask you to walk with confidence, to love yourself fiercely, unapologetically, to know without a shadow of a doubt that you are valuable. Not because of someone else's recognition, but because you were born worthy. Your worth does not diminish in the absence of applause. It grows in the silence, in the strength of your quiet persistence. We live in a world that often measures worth by external factors. Society tells us that value is tied to accomplishments, appearances, wealth, social status, and approval from others. From a young age, we are conditioned to seek validation from outside sources: the approval of our parents, the praise of our teachers, the admiration of our peers, or the recognition from our bosses or colleagues. We constantly look to others to tell us that we matter. But what happens when this validation doesn't come, or when it feels inconsistent? What happens when we are ignored, overlooked, or misunderstood? This is where the problem lies. We often place our sense of worth in the hands of others, forgetting that true value is something far deeper. Your worth is not defined by the external world. It is inherent within you. When we talk about knowing your worth, we are talking about understanding that you are valuable simply because you exist. Your worth is not something that is given to you by someone else. It's something you already have, built into the very core of who you are. It does not come from the recognition of others or the material successes you may achieve, nor is it measured by how many likes, followers, or accolades you accumulate. The value you hold is within you, and it cannot be taken away by anyone's perception of you or by the circumstances you face. The world may try to tell you otherwise, but the truth is, your worth does not change based on what others think or see. It's constant. It's unwavering. It's an essential part of your being. For many of us, the challenge is in remembering this truth. We grow up being told that we need to prove ourselves to be worthy, that we need to achieve certain things to be seen as valuable. The world encourages a narrative of conditional worth. If you achieve this, then you are valuable. If you get a high-paying job, if you own the latest gadgets, if you wear the right clothes, if you have a perfect body, if you win awards, then you are valuable. This creates a constant cycle of striving and chasing, where your worth becomes tied to outcomes and external recognition. We start to believe that we need to earn our worth, that we need to prove ourselves in some way in order to be considered valuable. But this way of thinking can be damaging. When we place our worth in the hands of external factors, we make ourselves vulnerable to the unpredictability of the world. We cannot control how others perceive us, how life unfolds, or whether or not we will achieve every goal we set. If our worth is tied to these things, we set ourselves up for disappointment, insecurity, and constant self-doubt. The reality is, life is unpredictable, and you cannot always control the way others see you or the way things unfold. What you can control is how you view yourself. The key to living a fulfilling life, to feeling truly confident and at peace, is to recognize that your worth is not dependent on what others think or what you achieve. It is something that exists inherently within you, waiting for you to recognize it. The moment we realize that our worth is not conditional, we are freed from the constant need for validation. We no longer have to chase after approval, recognition, or external praise to feel valuable. Instead, we begin to cultivate a sense of self-worth that comes from within. This doesn't mean that we stop striving for goals or pursuing growth, but it means that we are no longer reliant on the opinions or validation of others. We can pursue our dreams with confidence, knowing that we are valuable regardless of the outcome. When you understand that your worth is inherent, you begin to treat yourself with more respect and kindness. You stop allowing the opinions of others to dictate your self-esteem. Instead of measuring your value by how others see you, you begin to measure it by how you see yourself. You start to embrace your imperfections, your flaws, and your strengths, knowing that they are all part of what makes you unique and valuable. You stop seeking external approval and start affirming your own worth. You become your own greatest source of validation. It is also important to recognize that external validation is often fleeting. Praise and recognition from others can be temporary, and in many cases, it can be influenced by factors beyond your control. People may offer compliments or accolades one day, only to criticize or ignore you the next. Achievements may bring satisfaction, but they do not provide lasting fulfillment. If your worth is tied to these external factors, you may find yourself constantly chasing after something that never truly satisfies. True fulfillment comes from recognizing that your worth is not dependent on anything external, but is an intrinsic part of who you are. This understanding of inherent worth also has profound implications for how we relate to others. When we recognize that our worth does not depend on others' approval, we begin to accept and appreciate others for who they truly are, rather than for what they can do for us or how they make us feel. We start to recognize that everyone has their own intrinsic value, regardless of their accomplishments or status. This creates a more compassionate and inclusive world where people are valued for their humanity and not just their achievements. When we embrace the idea that our worth is inherent, we become more accepting of ourselves and others, creating a more peaceful and supportive environment in which we can all thrive. At the same time, we must acknowledge that this understanding of worth doesn't mean we are perfect or immune to challenges. We all face difficult moments, setbacks, and doubts. There will be times when we feel overlooked, misunderstood, or even rejected. But in those moments, it is important to remind ourselves that our worth is not diminished by these experiences. Just because someone doesn't see your value, it doesn't mean it's not there. Just because you face challenges or failures, it doesn't mean you are any less valuable. Your worth is not determined by your successes or failures, but by the very fact that you exist. Every person has intrinsic value, regardless of what they have achieved or what others think of them. Recognizing your inherent worth also means embracing self-compassion. It means being kind to yourself during times of struggle and failure. When we believe our worth is tied to external validation, we can be harsh and unforgiving toward ourselves when things go wrong. We may fall into patterns of self-criticism, thinking that we are not good enough or that we are not deserving of love and respect. But when we understand that our worth is not conditional, we can extend grace to ourselves. We can acknowledge our mistakes and learn from them without losing sight of our inherent value. We can treat ourselves with the same kindness and compassion that we would show to a friend who is going through a difficult time. This also ties into the idea of self-empowerment. When we understand that our worth does not depend on others' approval, we are free to take control of our own lives. We stop waiting for permission to pursue our dreams and passions. We stop seeking approval from others before taking action. Instead, we move forward with confidence, knowing that we are already worthy of success, love, and happiness. We are empowered to create the life we want without needing anyone else to affirm our worthiness. One of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is the ability to recognize that our worth is not tied to our external circumstances. Whether we are struggling or succeeding, whether we are facing challenges or experiencing triumphs, our worth remains the same. It is constant, unchanging, and forever present within us. By learning to recognize and we no longer need to seek validation from others because we know that we are already valuable just as we are. We live in a world where external validation has become a cornerstone of how we measure our own worth. Every day, we are bombarded by social media, advertisements, and the expectations of others that tell us we need to look a certain way, act a certain way, or achieve certain things in order to be considered valuable. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that our worth is dependent on how others see us. We begin to chase external approval, thinking that if we can just get that praise, recognition, or acknowledgement, we'll finally feel good enough, finally feel worthy. But here's the truth. Validation from the outside world does not define you. Your self-worth is something you must cultivate within yourself. When we rely on others to define our value, we give up control over our own sense of self. We begin to look outside ourselves for the affirmation we crave. We check our social media accounts for likes and comments, hoping for recognition, or we seek approval from friends, family, or colleagues. We wait for someone to tell us that we are enough, that we are worthy of love, success, and respect. But what happens when this validation doesn't come, or when it's inconsistent? What happens when people fail to notice our efforts, or when we are criticized, ignored, or misunderstood? In those moments, we may feel less than, unworthy, or even invisible. When we live for the approval of others, we are constantly putting our worth in someone else's hands. And that's a dangerous thing. No matter how much we try to control the way people see us or how we present ourselves, we can never control the way others think or feel. People's perceptions of us are shaped by their own experiences, biases. No matter how much we bend, shift, or change to fit into the molds others create, we can never guarantee that everyone will see us in the way we hope to be seen. If we depend on others for our sense of value, we will forever be on a roller coaster of approval and rejection, and our sense of self will always be at the mercy of external forces. True self-worth cannot be based on how others view us. It has to come from within. This is one of the most powerful realizations you can have. Your worth is not dependent on anyone else's perception of you. You are valuable simply because you exist. The love, respect, and success you deserve are not tied to what others think of you, but to the simple truth that you're worthy because of who you are, not because of what you do or what others believe about you. When you begin to internalize this truth, you take back control over your own value. You stop seeking approval from others to feel good about yourself. Instead, you start looking within. You begin to appreciate your own strengths, qualities, and character, regardless of whether anyone else sees them. You realize that your worth is not something to be earned by meeting the expectations of others, but something inherent that you must recognize and affirm in yourself. This doesn't mean you stop caring about others' opinions entirely or that you become immune to feedback. We all need healthy relationships and support, and we can benefit from constructive criticism. But it means that you stop letting those opinions dictate how you feel about yourself. You stop tying your sense of value to whether or not others approve of you. You begin to listen to your own voice, to trust your instincts, and to make decisions based on what feels right to you rather than based on the need to gain someone's approval. The freedom that comes with realizing that you don't need external validation is incredible. When you stop waiting for others to tell you that you matter, you start to live more authentically. You no longer need to change who you are or alter your actions in order to fit someone else's idea of what you should be. You can be yourself, flaws, quirks, and all, and still feel good enough. This shift in mindset is liberating. It allows you to be comfortable in your own skin, to embrace your individuality, and to move through the world with greater confidence and peace of mind. One of the most beautiful things about this is that when you no longer rely on others' validation, you begin to become a source of validation for yourself. You learn to celebrate your own victories, no matter how small they may seem. You recognize your progress, your growth, and the journey you're on. You stop waiting for someone else to notice your accomplishments and start acknowledging them yourself. This creates a sense of inner fulfillment that no external validation could ever replicate. You become your own biggest cheerleader. When you stop seeking validation from the outside world, you also open the door for more genuine connections with others. You stop relying on others to validate you, and instead you engage with people from a place of authenticity. You can form deeper, more meaningful relationships because you're not trying to impress anyone or gain their approval. You simply show up as your true self, and that is enough. You attract people who appreciate you for who you really are, not for who you pretend to be. It's also important to remember that external validation is often fleeting. The praise you receive today may fade tomorrow. People's opinions are constantly shifting, and what someone thinks of you can change in an instant. But when you build your sense of worth from within, it is unshakable. Your value doesn't depend on how others see you in a particular moment or in a particular context. It remains constant, regardless of the circumstances. This doesn't mean you shouldn't care about the people around you. It doesn't mean you shouldn't strive for excellence or aim to make a positive impact in the world. It simply means that you don't need the approval of others to feel worthy. You recognize that your worth is not contingent on the external. You know deep down that you are valuable whether or not anyone sees it. When you release the need for external validation, you begin to tap into a deeper source of strength and resilience. You stop depending on the opinions of others to feel good about yourself. Instead, you rely on your own internal compass, your own sense of self-worth to guide you through life. You become more grounded, more confident, and more empowered. You no longer give away your power to others' perceptions. You recognize that your value is inherent, and that knowledge transforms the way you navigate the world. The most important validation you can ever receive is the validation you give yourself. When you recognize your own worth, you stop needing others to affirm it. You start living from a place of self-assurance and self-respect. You stop chasing approval, and instead you simply show up as your authentic self, worthy, valuable, and enough as you are. The moments when we feel unseen or overlooked are often the most defining in our lives. There are times when we give our all, when we pour our energy into something we believe in, only to find that no one notices. We work hard, we put in the effort, and yet the recognition doesn't come. It can be discouraging, frustrating, and even heartbreaking. But here's the truth that we often forget. It is in these very moments of being unseen that we build the most profound strength. The world may not always recognize your efforts, but the work you put in, even in the quietest of spaces, matters. And it matters not because of anyone else's acknowledgement, but because of the resilience it builds within you. When no one is watching, when no one is applauding, that is when your true character is shaped. It is easy to feel validated when people are cheering you on, when you're receiving praise, and when your success is on display for the world to see. But it is in the absence of external validation that we are forced to dig deeper. We have to find the strength within ourselves to keep moving forward, even when no one is around to witness our progress. This is when we discover who we really are and what we are truly made of. There is a beauty in working quietly, in doing the work that doesn't get recognition right away. It's in these moments that we learn the value of persistence, the power of consistency, and the importance of believing in ourselves even when others don't. You may not be getting the applause you think you deserve, but every step you take toward your goal, no matter how small, is each day you keep going even when no one notices. You are proving to yourself that you are capable, that you are strong, and that your worth is not determined by external factors. When you work in the shadows without the recognition you might crave, you have the opportunity to build something that lasts beyond fleeting praise. You create a foundation of inner strength that can carry you through even the toughest of times. This strength comes from within. It doesn't rely on the approval of others. It doesn't wait for someone to give you permission to be great. It is born from the quiet determination to keep moving forward, regardless of who is watching. The times when you feel unseen are often the times when you are learning the most. You are developing resilience, discipline, and self-reliance. You are learning to trust yourself, to trust that the work you're doing has value even if others don't immediately see it. You are also learning to value your own journey rather than seeking validation from others about where you are or where you're headed. The journey itself becomes the reward, and the effort you put into each step becomes its own form of recognition. In fact, working without the expectation of recognition allows you to focus on the process rather than the outcome. When we work solely for external validation, we may lose sight of the deeper purpose behind our actions. We may begin to seek validation for validation's sake, rather than striving towards something that truly matters to us. But when we are working without the expectation of applause, we are freed from the need for constant affirmation. So we can fully immerse ourselves in the work, in the joy of the process, and in the satisfaction that comes from knowing we're doing something meaningful, regardless of whether others notice. This is where true growth happens. The most significant transformations often occur in the moments when we are not being celebrated, when we are not in the spotlight. It is in these moments that we develop the perseverance, patience, and inner strength that will carry us through the next phase of our journey. We may not see the immediate results of our work, and others may not recognize the effort we've put in, but we are laying the groundwork for something much more meaningful in the long term. There is also a profound sense of freedom in doing the work that goes unnoticed, without the pressure of having to live up to someone else's expectations or the constant need to impress others. You can focus on what truly matters to you. You can take risks, try new things, and explore new possibilities without the fear of judgment. You are free to follow your passion, your purpose, and your intuition, even when no one else is watching. In these moments of solitude, you learn to trust yourself completely. You learn that you don't need anyone else's approval to feel worthy or capable. Your worth is not defined by how others perceive you. It is defined by your own belief belief in yourself and your own ability to keep moving forward. The value of working in the shadows also lies in the fact that it teaches us humility. When we are not constantly seeking the spotlight, we are forced to focus on the work itself, on doing the best we can without needing recognition or praise. This humility builds a strong foundation for personal growth. It helps us understand that success is not just about the accolades or the external validation, but about the quiet, consistent effort we put into everything we do. It's these moments of being unseen that often lead to the most profound breakthroughs. It's when we are working in silence, when no one is watching, that we develop the grit and determination that will help us succeed in the future. The world may not see it now, but every quiet step you take, every moment you spend working towards your goals without the need for recognition is shaping you into the person you are meant to become. When we start to recognize our own worth, we realize that it is not something external to us, something we must earn or prove to others. It is not tied to how others perceive us or to the validation we receive from the world. The recognition of our value is a deeply personal experience, one that has nothing to do with what anyone else thinks and everything to do with how we see ourselves. It's about learning to appreciate ourselves, acknowledging our strengths, our growth, and our journey, regardless of whether or not the world notices. The key to this realization is understanding that the value of what we do is not defined by the praise we receive or the outward success we achieve. Our worth is tied to the fact that we exist, that we have the capacity for growth, for change, for love, and for learning. It is an inherent part of who we are. This is a crucial distinction because if we rely solely on external recognition, we risk becoming dependent on other people's opinions, which are often out of our control. If we base our sense of worth on what others think, we set ourselves up for inconsistency. People will see us differently from day to day, and their opinions may fluctuate depending on their mood, personal biases, or even external circumstances. What happens then to our self-worth if it is constantly shaped by someone else's ever-changing perspective? But when we shift our focus inward, when we start to define our value by how we view ourselves rather than how others see us, we gain a deeper sense of peace and confidence. It becomes a personal understanding that our worth is constant, regardless of the external factors. We are valuable not because of what we accomplish or how we fit into the expectations of others, but because we are human, because we have the power to create, to change, and to contribute in ways that no one else can. Learning to recognize our value also means learning to honor our own journey. Everyone's path is different, and our experiences shape us in unique ways. Sometimes we may look at others and feel like we are falling behind or not measuring up. We may compare ourselves to the successes, achievements, or milestones of those around us and feel like we are lacking. But this is a trap we must avoid. Comparing our journey to others only serves to diminish our own worth. The truth is, no one else's path is the same as yours. What works for them might not work for you, and that's perfectly okay. The value of your journey lies not in how it compares to someone else's, but in the lessons you learn, the growth you experience, and the person you become along the way. The world will often try to tell you that you're not enough, that you need to do more, be more, or become something you're not. We're told that success and worth are tied to accomplishments, accolades, and achievements. But none of those things define us at our core. Yes, success can be a beautiful byproduct of our efforts, but it is not what makes us who we are. Our true worth is built on something far deeper. It's built on the way we show up for ourselves, on the love and kindness we offer to the world, and on the strength we draw from within, especially during times of hardship. We also have to remember that our value doesn't fade when we're not in the spotlight or when we don't receive the applause or recognition we may feel we deserve. So often we are taught to chase external validation, to strive for the moment when everyone acknowledges our efforts. But that moment may never come, or it may be fleeting. If we place our worth in those moments, we risk being disappointed when they don't arrive or when they don't meet our expectations. The beauty of knowing your worth is that it's not dependent on those moments at all. You can be valuable without anyone else recognizing it. You can be worthy without anyone else applauding your efforts. When you begin to see your value for what it truly is, something that resides within you, not outside of you, you stop chasing recognition. You learn to validate yourself. You start to appreciate the small victories, the progress you make every day, even if no one else notices. And that is powerful. It's the quiet moments of personal growth, of overcoming obstacles, and of staying true to yourself when the world may not understand that truly matter. These moments are often the most important because they are where you discover your own strength, resilience, and true potential. Recognizing your worth means learning to embrace yourself fully without condition or apology. It's understanding that you are enough just as you are and that no one else's approval or recognition is necessary for you to feel valid. It's about cultivating an internal sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that comes from within, not from the outside world. When you stop looking for others to validate your worth, you open yourself up to a greater sense of freedom. You are no longer beholden to the opinions of others or the expectations they place on you. Instead, you can move through the world with the confidence that your worth is intrinsic and not dependent on anyone else's perspective. This understanding also allows you to show up more authentically in your relationships and in your work. When you know your worth, you are no longer seeking validation from those around you. You are free to engage with others from a place of genuine connection and self-assurance. You can be fully present in your relationships without needing to prove yourself or gain approval. And in your work, you can take risks, pursue passions, and push yourself to new heights because you are not afraid of rejection or failure. You know that your value is not tied to the outcomes. It is tied to the effort, the intention, and the journey. When you recognize your worth, you begin to live your life from a place of inner strength and self-assurance. You understand that your value is not conditional on what others see or acknowledge. You stop seeking external validation and start living authentically, fully embracing the person you are. This inner confidence transforms the way you approach everything in your life, from your relationships to your career to your personal goals. Your worth is something that can never be taken away, and once you truly understand that, you become unstoppable. When we begin to love ourselves unapologetically, we tap into a profound sense of power. Loving yourself isn't just about feeling good in the moment, it's about accepting who you are, flaws and all, and owning that truth. Self-love is not conditional on external factors or on meeting anyone else's standards. It's a deep inner acceptance that no matter what happens, you are worthy of love, respect, and kindness. First and foremost, from yourself, it means embracing yourself without apology, without feeling the need to shrink, hide, or adjust for the comfort of others. It means acknowledging that you are enough exactly as you are without needing anyone else's approval or validation. The journey to self-love begins with self-awarenesses. It starts with taking the time to get to know yourself, not just your strengths, but also your weaknesses, your fears, your dreams, and your insecurities. This deep self-awareness allows you to appreciate who you are without judgment or shame. When we truly know ourselves, we can begin to see the value in every part of our being, even the parts that may seem imperfect or broken. Self-love isn't about being perfect. It's about accepting yourself in all your humanity and seeing the beauty in your imperfections. Often we are taught to seek approval from others, to mold ourselves into what we think will be accepted or loved by the world. We adjust our behavior, our appearance, and our actions in hopes of gaining validation, approval, or love from those around us. But the truth is, no amount of external validation can replace the love you need to give yourself. Seeking constant approval from others can leave you feeling unfulfilled, insecure, and anxious. And it's an endless cycle of trying to prove your worth to people who may not fully understand or appreciate who you truly are. The moment we stop waiting for permission to love ourselves is the moment we unlock our full potential. Loving yourself unapologetically means releasing the need for approval from others. It means letting go of the fear of being judged or misunderstood. It's about standing in your truth without fear of rejection or criticism. This can be one of the most challenging aspects of self-love, especially in a world that constantly tells us we should be something different or better. Society often pushes unrealistic standards of beauty, success, and behavior, and we can internalize those standards, thinking that if we don't meet them, we are not worthy of love or respect. But true self-love comes from accepting yourself exactly as you are, regardless of whether you meet those standards or not. It's about freeing yourself from the comparison trap and acknowledging that your worth is not based on how you measure up to someone else's expectations. The key to loving yourself unapologetically is realizing that you have the right to take up space in the world. You don't have to shrink yourself or make yourself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. You have the right to take up the space you need, to speak your truth, to pursue your dreams, and to express yourself. It's about recognizing that you are deserving of all the good things that life has to offer, and that you do not need to apologize for wanting them or for having the courage to go after them. Self-love also involves setting boundaries. Loving yourself unapologetically means recognizing that you are worthy of respect and that you do not need to tolerate mistreatment or disrespect from others. It's about protecting your energy, your peace, and your well-being. Setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation. When we love ourselves, we know that we deserve to be treated with kindness, honesty, and respect, and we will not settle for anything less. This applies not only to our relationships with others, but also to our relationship with ourselves. When we love ourselves, we prioritize our mental, emotional, and physical health, and we make choices that honor our own well-being. A big part of loving yourself unapologetically is learning to forgive yourself. We all make mistakes and we all have regrets, but those mistakes do not define us. Holding on to guilt, shame, or resentment only prevents us from moving forward and embracing who we are now. Self-love means being compassionate with yourself, understanding that you are human, and allowing yourself the grace to learn from your mistakes without letting them hold you back. When you forgive yourself, you free yourself from the chains of the past and give yourself permission to grow, evolve, and become a better version of yourself. Loving yourself unapologetically also means embracing the process of growth. It means accepting that you won't always have everything figured out, that you will face challenges, setbacks, and failures along the way. But none of these experiences diminish your worth. In fact, they contribute to your growth and resilience. When you love yourself, you see every experience as an opportunity to learn, to become stronger, and to understand yourself more deeply. You stop viewing mistakes as failures, and instead you begin to see them as lessons that are part of your unique journey. In this process, it is essential to practice self-compassion. We are often our own harshest critics, constantly judging ourselves, doubting our abilities, and holding ourselves to unattainable standards. But self-love requires us to be kind to ourselves, to speak to ourselves with the same compassion and understanding that we would offer a friend. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of love, not because you are perfect, but because you are human, and because you are enough as you are. To love yourself unapologetically means to stop waiting for permission to be who you are. It's about embracing your uniqueness, your quirks, your imperfections, and your strengths without the need to conform to someone else's idea of what is acceptable or perfect. It's about standing tall, owning your worth, and living authentically without fear or shame.